They gave me a velvet box for our second anniversary. Inside wasn't jewelry. It was a fountain pen, heavy, black, expensive, the kind you use to sign something that can't be unsaid. Use this, Victor said, like a judge offering mercy. My father-in-law always speaks like people are lucky to be in the room when he's talking. It's more dignified. The room at the private club was all glass and winter skyline, candlelight pooling in crystal. Elaine, the mother-in-law who compliments like she's filing performance reviews, smiled too wide across the linen. My husband, Mark, stared at a water ring like it might answer for him. Open the card, Lena, Elaine urged, her pearls catching the light like tiny teeth. I did. A neat, embossed envelope from a downtown law firm. The first page said petition. The second said dissolution. The third said my full name, middle, and maiden, spelled correctly because of course Victor checks things like that. I laughed. A small, wrong sound that bounced off the glass and died. Is this a joke? Mark didn't meet my eyes. His thumbs worried the seam of his napkin until the linen looked abused. We should talk after dessert, he murmured. There's really no need, Victor said, rising to his full club chair height. We're all adults, and family decisions are best handled directly. He nodded toward the end of the table where people we called close friends blinked into their sparkling water, and people we called extended family studied their bread plates like they'd become fascinating. You know how a room feels when it decides something without telling you? Like the oxygen turns into an inside joke. That. I looked at the papers again. The reason? Couched in polite phrases, but loud anyway. Irreconcilable differences including failure to conceive after a reasonable period. A sentence written by someone who has never cried on a bathroom floor. My chest went buzzed numb, like when your leg falls asleep, except it was my life. Mark? I said, a full question and a half name. Elaine smoothed a napkin that didn't need smoothing. Sweetheart, we've been worried for you. Dragging this out isn't healthy. We're trying to free you both. Free him, I corrected, before I realized I'd said it out loud. Victor clapped once, soft but final. To avoid confusion, he announced, we'd like you to meet someone. He tilted his chin toward the entrance, confident as a ringmaster. A young woman stepped inside, blue slip dress, hair like a shampoo commercial. She looked like a magazine page, minimal, curated, effortless. I knew her. Not by name. By the way she stood close to Mark at his office holiday party last month, pretending they'd both just reached for the same mini crab cake. The way his voice went softer around her, as if she were perpetually chilled. This is Alina, Elaine said, beaming. Mark's partner. She'll make a darling mother. Alina lifted a careful hand, the ring on her finger flash bright. Not my ring. New ring. Not tentative. Planted. My breath snagged. Not because she was younger, though she was. Not because she was the kind of beautiful that makes you check your posture, though she was. But because the pearl studs in her ears were familiar. Elaine's pearls. The ones she'd promised me someday. I had tried them on once in her mirror, the same mirror she used to tell me neutral lipsticks were more tasteful. Timing is unfortunate, Victor went on, because he cannot sense a cliff edge to save his life, but we prefer cleanliness over chaos. Sign tonight. Start fresh tomorrow. He tapped the pen box like it was a starter pistol. I set the petition down with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. In my head, old reels flickered, Mark lying diagonally on our couch, inches of pillow between us like a fence, the digital calendar where my ovulation windows bloomed in pastel, and his late meetings bloomed right on top of them, my friend Mia texting you eating, on nights I couldn't taste anything. A waiter arrived with flourless chocolate cake that smelled like someone else's happy evening. No one touched it. Lena, Mark finally said, looking at my collarbone because my face was too much work, we've been struggling. This is a solution, Victor finished. Adult, humane, efficient, like a layoff, like I should pack up my desk in a cardboard box. I thought about how my wedding band had left a faint pale circle on my finger I could never quite tan even when we went to Florida. The ring was warm now. My skin remembered when it wasn't. Where was this efficiency when it came to not humiliating me? I asked, my voice steadier than my heart. You could have called me into a side room, Victor. You could have texted me, Mark. God, you could have left a note. Elaine's smile tightened. Lena, don't be theatrical. Is it theatrical if it's happening? I asked. Because it's happening. In front of the Hendersons from next door and my cousin who can't keep secrets for 6 minutes. A sound at the doorway, a small gasp. Mia stood there in a coat she hadn't had time to take off, hair a wind tangle, cheeks flushed from the cold. Her eyes traveled in a single clear line over the documents, the pen, Alina's dress, Mark's hands. She didn't look surprised. She looked ready. Don't sign, she said. Not loud. Not begging. Just a clean instruction, like breathe. Victor bristled. This is a family matter. Mia walked straight to my chair like there was a magnetic track only she could see. She put a warm palm on my back and set a manila envelope on the linen in front of me. One corner was wrinkled like she'd been gripping it too tight. The club's candles doubled in the glass wall, our faces ghosting over the city. In that reflection, I watched the room lean in as one organism. Open it, she said. Mark's throat bobbed. Alina's fingers slid under the tablecloth. Elaine clutched her pearls and realized they were missing. What is this? Victor demanded, though he didn't reach for it. Men like him prefer other people to open the door before they walk through it. Mia didn't blink. The thing none of you bothered to wait for. My hand stopped shaking long enough to slip a thumb under the flap. The paper inside was medical white, the kind that creases like it remembers being a tree. For half a second I saw our mantle at home, the photo from our wedding day where Mark was looking at me like I was the good thing he'd ever done. Then I slid the paper free, and the room forgot how to breathe. 6 hours earlier, my apartment felt like a hotel room I'd overpaid for, sterile, temporary, quiet in a way that vibrated. I stood at the sink, rinsing a coffee mug I wasn't drinking from, staring at the pale circle on my ring finger around the band. I'd slept in the guest room again. Mark had fallen asleep on the couch, with his phone face down, and I'd decided not to care because pretending not to care had become a survival skill. My period was 3 days late. Not a novel phenomenon, but not common for me either. The thought had been a moth in my skull for 48 hours, silent until dark. My phone buzzed. Mia, you up? Me, barely. Mia, drive. I'm outside. I looked through the blinds and saw her car at the curb, hazard lights blinking like a metronome. I threw on Mark's ancient gray hoodie, the one that still smelled like the fabric softener we'd used when grocery runs were a thing we did together, and grabbed my tote. We didn't talk until we hit the end of our block. Mia's profile was focused, the kind she saved for making soufflés or confronting managers who accidentally skipped our table twice. I made you an appointment, she said. For what? You know for what? I can test at home. You did last month and the month before that, and then you cried over a plastic stick alone. She signaled, calm and clean. We're doing blood work. No guessing. No faint lines that require 6 photos and a group chat vote. I smiled without humor. You're bossy. You're fragile, she said, not unkindly. Let me be the scaffolding. The clinic was 10 minutes away, long enough for 2 red lights and 1 billboard advertising baby photos in baskets. The waiting room looked like a mood board, sage walls, wood accents, diffusers puffing calm into the air. A woman with a pumpkin-shaped belly scrolled through nursery rugs on her phone and laughed at something her partner whispered in her ear. I swallowed the feeling that rose like heat. The phlebotomist tied the blue elastic, tapped my vein with her finger. Fist for me, she said. You okay? Great, I lied, because it's easier than unspooling your entire life to a stranger in scrubs. Mia's hand found my knee. Once the vials were filled, she followed the tech to the desk like a lawyer to discovery, confirmed my number twice, arranged for results to be emailed to her too just in case Lena is indisposed. The receptionist didn't argue. There's a type of competence people don't step in front of. Back in the car, Mia exhaled. Food? I couldn't. You'll faint at 7 p.m. and Victor will call it overwrought. We're getting eggs. She ordered them the way I like, medium, sourdough, extra jam. We ate quietly, surrounded by the hum of early lunchers with laptops. On the blackboard behind the counter someone had written, sourdough is patience made edible. I stared at it until the letters blurred. At 11:14, my phone lit. Unknown, hi, this is Nora from Dr. Patel's office. Your results are in. Please give us a call when you can. Mia had already pulled the car into park. Put it on speaker. My chest felt too small. I tapped call. The line connected, and Nora's voice was warm in a way that felt dangerous. Hi, Lena. Yes, we have your quantitative HCG. It's positive. Congratulations. The word cracked the air between us. Positive. The kind of positive that meant yes, not maybe. Numbers I didn't fully grasp followed, doubling times, ranges. She told me when to schedule the first ultrasound, what to avoid, what to take. I wrote nothing down and remembered everything. Mia's eyes went glassy, her grin could have lit a runway. You're pregnant, she said, as if the word could wrap me in bubble wrap. For one ungoverned second, joy got through. It was white-hot and clean, the opposite of the gray logic I'd been living in. Then the phone flashed again, text on top of a miracle. Mark, dinner at the club tonight. 7. My parents want to celebrate our anniversary properly. Properly. That word again, with its straight edges and implied corrections. Tell him you're not going, Mia said instantly. I stared at the text until it became pixels. If I don't show, they'll say I ran. They'll write the ending they want. My hands trembled. If I do show, maybe I can write mine. Mia didn't love it, but she didn't argue. Instead, she said, we print the results. Paper makes things undeniable. Screens get dismissed. We drove to her office because she's the only person I know who keeps a good printer and never runs out of ink. While the paper fed through, Mia found a manila envelope and slid the report inside like it was a fragile photograph. She sealed it with her palm. You keep this with you, she said. If they try anything, they won't, I lied again, because hoping feels like tempting. At home, I showered. Steam ghosted the mirror. I drew a sun in it with my finger like a child. In the closet, I skipped the blue dress Elaine had once called appropriate and chose black. Not mourning, armor. I put concealer on the bruised half-moons under my eyes and mascara on lashes that didn't want to be theatrical tonight. When I reached for earrings, my hand hovered over pearl studs I'd borrowed from Elaine once for a gala. I shut the box. Mark came home at 6:08. He had the look of someone who had rehearsed a speech and realized the audience would be hostile. He smoothed his tie, checked his watch, avoided the glass bowl where we keep our keys because mine were still in my tote and that meant I hadn't left yet. You look nice, he said. So do you, I said. Is Alina coming? The name felt like swallowing a coin. He flinched so slightly, most people wouldn't have seen it. I did. This is about us, he said. Is it? He looked at me then, properly, like a man who realizes the room has rules he never learned. For a tiny second, I saw the person who'd danced with me in our living room on a Tuesday night to a song we both hated because it was on the radio and the sink was full of dishes and the pasta was too salty and none of it mattered. Please don't make a scene, he murmured. I thought of our bathroom trash can with 3 negative tests in it from the spring, of the calendar alerts he snoozed, of the night I cried so quietly our upstairs neighbor's faucet was louder. A scene, if it came, would have 1,000 authors. The club's lobby smelled like polished wood and lemon. The maitre d' smiled the way people smile when they recognize your husband's last name. The manager guided us to the private room with the skyline view and the linen that made it hard to breathe. Victor stood as if he'd invented standing. Elaine kissed my cheek and left a faint powder print like a chalk outline. The table filled with faces who'd been fed our story in digestible pieces. A neighbor who overwatered her plants. Mark's boss with his boat tan. My cousin, whose eyes flicked to my hands like she could see a life there already. Through dinner, the conversation had the tight bounce of a trampoline. No one wanted to break the surface. Victor asked about my freelance clients in the tone you use to check a fire alarm battery. Elaine mentioned the Hendersons' new baby 3 times, each repetition a little louder. Mark drank more than he eats on weekdays. My water glass sweated a ring onto the cloth that grew and grew no matter how often I moved it. At 6:57, Mia texted, I'm nearby. At 7:02, Victor raised his glass and thanked everyone for coming to support us like this was a board meeting with hors d'oeuvres. At 7:04, a server set down the flourless cake I wouldn't get to taste. At 7:05, Victor slid the velvet pen box toward me. At 7:06, Alina appeared in the doorway like a stage direction. The manila envelope in my tote thudded against my hip when I shifted, a heartbeat that matched my own. I pictured the lab tech's neat numbers. The way Mia had said you're pregnant with her whole face. I anchored myself to that. To the fact that something unscripted was already happening inside me. Use this, Victor said. It's more dignified. The legal packet lay where he placed it, tidy as a placemat. 100 shifting eyes turned their heat on my skin. I could feel the moment assembling itself like scaffolding around a building about to be unveiled. Then a breath of cold air touched the back of my neck, and Mia's reflection appeared in the glass wall, coat half on. Hair wind-tossed, eyes clear. Don't sign, she said. And in the pocket of my tote, paper weighted like a match against dry wood. I didn't pull the paper yet. Instead, I rested my hand on the envelope like it was a pause button and looked straight at Victor. Before I open this, I said, say out loud why you needed me to sign tonight. Not next week. Tonight. He sat back, steepling his fingers. A man who loves a podium, even when it's a dinner table. Because closure is compassionate, he said smoothly. Dragging things out benefits no one. Mia's mouth tilted. Try again. The real reason. A flicker, there and gone. Fine. Victor's smile thinned into something administrative. Mark's promotion finalizes this quarter. Clean lines protect reputations. Public scenes create noise. A breath moved through the room, the kind that follows a dropped glass. Reputations, I repeated. Whose? Mark flinched. Lena. Say it, Mia cut in, soft but surgical. Say why your dad booked a room with a skyline and a cake. Victor exhaled like we were tedious. There are optics around Mark's personal life, he said. We prefer them optimized. Because? Mia asked, drawing the word out 1 millimeter. Victor's eyes slid to Alina, then back to me. Because he's in love. Is that what HR calls it? Mia asked. Or do they still use policy violation? A few guests shifted, interest sharpening at the edges. Mark's boss looked down so hard at his cutlery it might have confessed, too. Mark scrubbed a hand over his jaw. Alina doesn't report to me, he said quickly. Mia's eyebrows rose. Not since last month, when she was moved to another team. Convenient timing. She kept her gaze on Victor. And you wanted a clean break on paper before anyone asked messy questions. Elaine's pearls clicked under her fingers. This is vulgar, she hissed. What's vulgar is serving dessert before serving the truth, Mia said. She turned to me. Lena, ask him about March. I looked at Mark. What happened in March? He swallowed. His napkin twisted again. Nothing happened. Mia slid her phone across the linen, screen up. An email subject line in bold, semen analysis results, follow-up recommended. The sender, Dr. Ashland, Urology. Date, March 17, 9:06 a.m. Mark's face drained a color I'd only seen in hospital corridors. Where did you? Your cloud, Mia said. You used our old shared drive for tax scans. You forgot you automated medical PDFs there last year when you did your allergy panel. Silence hit like a dropped curtain. I read the first line without touching the phone. Parameters consistent with low motility and suboptimal morphology. Recommend repeat testing and referral. The words threaded together, clinical and cold. But their meaning was simple. The problem hadn't been mine alone. My voice came out small and very clear. You knew. Mark stared at the bread plate like it might split open and swallow him. It's not. It doesn't mean impossible. No, Mia said. It means hard. It means honest conversations. It means not setting your wife on fire in public to keep your shoes dry. I felt every pair of eyes ping-pong between us, between the phone and my face and Alina's ring. The pearl studs in her earlobes glowed like a dare. Victor found his baritone again. Male factors are often transient, he said crisply. You can't pin a marriage's failure on a lab. We're not pinning anything, Mia said. We're unpinning the lie you hung around Lena's neck to make yourselves comfortable. Elaine leaned in, voice sticky with pity. Sweetheart, biology is complicated. We only wanted. You wanted an heir, I said. You said the word last week over roast chicken like it was a prayer. Victor's jaw twitched. Legacy matters. Families that endure understand. Stop. My palm lifted on instinct. Say what you told Mark he had to do. Use the real words. Not closure or legacy. The ones you used when you thought I wasn't invited. Victor's eyes hardened. He miscalculated and stepped closer to his truth. I told my son to end a situation that was not producing results and align his life with someone who could. And you, I said to Mark, agreed. His voice broke on the first syllable. I panicked, he said. I was ashamed. I thought if it was you, if it was your body, then it wasn't me. My dad kept saying we had to be pragmatic. And then Alina, he stopped, choking on her name. I'm not proud, he managed. I'm sorry. I wanted out before everything blew up. Mia tapped the envelope under my hand. About that blowing up. I slid the paper free and turned it so the nearest candles lit the header. My heartbeat was everywhere, throat, wrists, behind my eyes. This is from Dr. Patel, I said. It's a quantitative blood test. Positive. A gasp rolled the length of the table, the kind people make when a plot twist hits and they realize they missed the clues. Elaine's lips parted. Victor didn't move, he just, unlit. How? Mark whispered. When? 11 days after you got back from Denver, Mia supplied, brisk as a metronome. Which is what the number suggests. She conceived while you were still sharing a bed and a grocery list. Victor recovered fast. Men like him always try to rebuild the story mid-sentence. We'll fix this, he said instantly, hands flat on the table like he could press the night smoother. We'll tear up those papers, we'll call my lawyer, we'll? No, I said. Calm surprised me with its weight. You don't get to switch genres now. He blinked. Genres? You wrote a tragedy and cast me as the necessary sacrifice. I'm not stepping back in to give you a happier ending. Mark reached for me, then thought better of it. His hand hovered in the air, empty. Lena, I made a mistake, he said, the kind of line men believe is a spell. I was scared. My dad. Your dad didn't send the texts, Mia cut in. She slid another printout across, this one a grid of time-stamped messages to a contact saved as J Hotel confirmations. Photos cropped so tight they were practically alibis. You started this before March. Alina's cheeks flushed, but she held her chin high. We didn't plan. Everyone planned something, Mia said. Sometimes it's ugly. I looked at the ring on Alina's finger. Did he tell you about March? I asked. Did he tell you he blamed me while he was waiting for his own retest? Her eyes flickered. Just once. Then she looked at Mark and found nothing to stand on. Victor turned on his son like men do when their projects unravel. You bloody fool, he hissed, polished vowels gone rough. Do you understand what you've jeopardized? My promotion? Mark said, a terrible, watery laugh catching in his throat. Your legacy? Or the part where I nuked my life because I was too proud to tell my wife I was scared? We all sat with that, the truth warming the air like a bad heater. I folded the lab report and slid it back into the envelope. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady in a way that felt new. You're going to stop telling people I failed. You're going to stop bringing up my body at dinners like it's a group project. And you're going to tell every person in this room what you just told me. Victor recoiled. I won't humiliate my family. You already did, I said. You called it dessert. Eyes moved to Mark. He looked at me, then at the floor, then at the wall of glass where the city blinked like it was listening. I lied, he said, voice raw. I blamed Lena because I couldn't face my own test. I cheated. I let my father script this. I tried to end our marriage in public because it felt easier than looking her in the eye in private. No one spoke. Even the city seemed to pause between heartbeats. And you? I asked, turning to Victor. One sentence. Plain. His mouth worked, pride fighting through quicksand. Then, quietly, like a confession at a bedside, I pushed my son to discard you because I decided you were defective. Mia's hand found mine under the table. There it is, she murmured. On the record. I stood, the chair legs grating the floor like a gavel. The envelope went into my tote, heavy as a future. I looked at each face, letting the silence frame the picture. Congratulations, I told Victor, borrowing his tone and handing it back wrong side out. You just confessed to giving away your grandchild. For a few long seconds, the room held its breath around Victor's confession like glass around a candle. Then the first crack, Mrs. Henderson from next door, the woman who bakes banana bread for new tenants and overwaters succulents, set down her fork with a click. That was cruel, she said, voice steady in a way I'd never heard from her. Not just misguided, cruel. To parade this, and to say she was defective? Shame on you, Victor. Color rose under Victor's tan, a tide he couldn't command. He reached for the safety of a shrug. We're all upset. Emotions are. Don't minimize, she snapped, surprising herself and half the table. You knew what you were doing. Across from her, my cousin Danny, who normally softens every blow with a joke, didn't smile. I kept thinking I was overreacting, she said, eyes on me. Because you were all so calm and official. She turned to Victor. That was the point, wasn't it? To make Lena feel crazy while you made this look civilized. Mark's boss, Greg, cleared his throat. The club light hit the silver at his temples, a suddenly less impressive crown. Victor, he said, careful, managerial. You know I respect your business acumen. But if what you just admitted is accurate, and given the documented medical results, you've orchestrated a public humiliation based on misinformation. He glanced at Mark like he was measuring him for a smaller suit. There are reputational risks. Victor went cold. Greg, let's be sensible. Greg didn't look away. My job is to be sensible. HR will have questions, especially considering his eyes flicked, once, to Alina's ring, timing. Alina shifted, the scrape of her chair loud in the hush. We didn't, she started, then stopped. Whatever sentence she'd polished in a mirror died on contact with the night. From the far end, Aunt Pat, retired principal, voice like a bell, leaned in. Legacies worth keeping aren't built on disposal, she said. You teach that to 12-year-olds who think apologies erase harm. They don't. They begin the work. This is miles before that. Elaine attempted a salvage, then smile back in place. We've made mistakes, she said sweetly. We'll apologize privately. There's no need for accountability, Mia said, finally letting heat into her tone. There's every need. You chose a roomful of witnesses for the takedown. You don't get a broom closet for the correction. The waiter, whose name tag said Ryan, hovered with the air of someone deciding whether to interrupt a house fire to offer more ice. The club manager materialized at his shoulder, drawn by the low thunder of voices. Is everything all right? She asked, scanning faces with professional triage. Yes, Victor said quickly. No, 3 of us said at once. Mine, Mia's, Mrs. Henderson's. The manager's gaze landed on the legal packet still spread like an autopsy. Her expression didn't change, but she straightened a fraction. We don't allow legal proceedings in private dining, she said, words chosen like a path through glass. It exposes the club to liabilities. Mia seized the opening with the grace of someone who once captained a debate team. Then it's fortunate this isn't a legal proceeding, she said, but it was presented like one to coerce a signature. I'd like this incident noted with time and staff present. Ryan's pen was already out, a soft scratch against a server pad. I can make a note, he mumbled, eyes apologizing to me like he wished he could serve justice with the cake. Victor's patience cracked. He pushed back his chair an inch. Enough, he said, looking around like a man trying to hypnotize a crowd back into compliance. We are not doing this spectacle. We'll handle matters within the family. A voice I didn't expect cut through. That's the problem, said Mr. Alvarez, Mark's mentor from the firm, quiet, don't upbringing, observant. He set his napkin down, precise. You've mistaken control for wisdom, Victor. I've watched you groom Mark to believe feelings are messes to be managed, not information to be respected. Tonight is the invoice for that lesson. Mark's jaw sagged a little. He looked 10 years younger and 5 years smaller. Mr. Alvarez. Son, Alvarez said gently, you're not the first man to hide in pride. But you chose harm as a strategy. PR can't fix that. Only confession and change can. Across the table, the Hendersons preteen, dragged here because it's a special night, blinked between adults like he'd stumbled into the unabridged version of how families really work. He whispered to his mom, why are they being mean to her? Mrs. Henderson's answer was the kind of lesson you don't plan to give at dessert. Because sometimes grown-ups forget to be decent, she said. And then other grown-ups have to remind them. Danny lifted her phone, locked, face down, then flipped it and slid it to Victor. The black screen reflected the chandelier. I didn't record, she said, but I will write myself a contemporaneous note when I get home. Everything that was said. Names, times. Just in case anyone's memory gets optimized. Victor's eyes flashed. Is that a threat? It's a boundary, Danny said. You taught us the value of documentation every time you sued a vendor, remember? Same tool, different target. The manager's radio crackled softly. She gave Victor the kind of smile you give a man about to make your night harder. Sir, if any guest feels harassed, we ask that the responsible party leave. Elaine stiffened. Are you calling my husband harassing? I'm calling the situation out of policy, the manager said evenly. And I'm documenting who created it. A new voice, small but clear. Lena? It was Tasha, a woman from my book club who'd once cried over a novel and apologized for it. She wiped at her eyes again, unashamed this time. I'm sorry I sat so quiet. It felt safer. But it didn't feel right. You don't deserve to be handled like a problem to be solved. Something in me unclenched. Not because I needed permission to feel wronged, but because the room was finally reflecting back the truth of what we were sitting in. Mia leaned closer. I know we're not crowdsourcing your backbone, she whispered. But it doesn't hurt to have witnesses when a man like Victor tries to rewrite. Alina stood abruptly, chair legs biting the floor. She looked at me, and for the first time, something like honest regret softened her face. I didn't know about March, she said quietly. He said, other things. She slid the pearl studs off, palms shaking, and set them in front of Elaine. I can't wear these. Elaine recoiled like the pearls had grown teeth. Don't be dramatic. Alina's mouth trembled. I thought I was stepping into love, she said, more to herself than to any of us. Not into a replacement plan. Mark's eyes closed. For a brief, unguarded second, I saw him as a boy in a too large suit, trying to stand like his father. When he opened them, he looked at me, finally head on. I'm sorry, he said again, but this time it didn't sound like a script. It sounded like a beginning he didn't know how to continue. I nodded once, not forgiving, just acknowledging that the syllables had arrived. Victor rose, stiff-backed, as if posture could reassert order. We're leaving, he announced to Elaine, to Mark, to the room he no longer commanded. Not before you say the last part, Aunt Pat said, the authority of 1,000 morning announcements behind her. To the person you harmed. His gaze met mine, anger and something like fear sparking in the space between. Pride fought on his tongue. He swallowed it like medicine. Lena, he said, and my name sounded unfamiliar from his mouth. I was wrong. Finish it, Mia said softly. He stared at the legal packet, at the envelope peeking from my tote like a verdict. Then, I was wrong about you. About your worth. About what makes a family. His breath shook once. I'm sorry. The room let out air together, a collective release that wasn't forgiveness so much as gravity returning. I didn't give him absolution. I gave him truth. I'm going to protect my child from this, I said. From all of this. If contact ever happens, it will be on my terms, not yours. Greg the boss spoke again, voice formal, already half in a meeting. Mark, we'll discuss next steps Monday. HR will want statements. He looked at me. If you need counsel, my wife's firm specializes in family law. She's good. Independent. Mia squeezed my hand under the table. Take the card, don't take the bait. Your choice. I nodded. I'll have my attorney reach out, I said, which was true even if my attorney was currently a Google Doc and Mia's paralegal friend on speed dial. Ryan reappeared, innocently heroic, with to-go boxes because he'd seen how this ends in 100 smaller, sadder versions. Would anyone like dessert wrapped up? He asked. The question was so normal it made me dizzy. Wrap the cake, Mia said, practical even now. She'll want it later. The manager hovered by the door, a quiet escort. The room's axis had shifted. The power that used to sit like a crown on Victor's head now pulled somewhere between the envelope in my bag and the witness's eyes. I stood. We're done here. Victor didn't argue. He stepped back, making space in a way that felt new for him and necessary for me. As Mia and I moved toward the door, the room parted, not in deference, but in recognition. Mrs. Henderson touched my elbow as we passed. Call me if you need anything, she said. Danny's phone pinged. She'd already emailed herself notes. Mr. Alvarez gave me a nod that meant, I saw. Greg's face settled into the neutrality of a man about to start 3 separate fires at work. We reached the threshold. I looked back once, only long enough to see Alina place the ring on the linen, not touching it, as if setting down a hot pan. Elaine stared at it like it might jump back onto the right finger if she willed it. Outside, the hallway air was cooler, thinner, real. I could taste lemon polish and winter through the revolving door. Mia let me walk a few silent steps before speaking. You're shaking, she said. I'm okay, I said, and to my surprise, I almost was. Because the room had shifted. Not just for tonight. For after. We didn't go home first. We went to Mia's place, top floor walk-up that smells like lemon dish soap and basil, where the couch has seen every version of my face. She set hot tea in front of me and pulled a legal pad from the junk drawer that isn't junk at all. Okay, she said, pen ready. We're not reacting. We're executing. A list bloomed in neat block letters. Attorney, independent. Banking, separate account. Phone/email, password changes. Housing, possession plan. Medical, OB and documentation. Work, HR paper trail. Club, incident report copy. Communication boundary, written only. Seeing it on paper steadied me. Attorney first, I said. Not Greg's wife. No overlap. Mia already had a name. Harper Kwan. Family law shark disguised as a kindergarten teacher. I used her for my sister's custody situation. She's fierce and calm. We emailed. Harper responded in 10 minutes, 8:30 a.m. My office. Bring ID, any prenup, insurance, income docs, and that lab report. She added, I'm sorry you're going through this. We'll get you structure. Structure sounded like oxygen. Passwords next. I changed them all, email, cloud, bank, the grocery app that still autofilled Mark's granola. 2-factor on everything. I turned off location sharing that had felt romantic when we were newlyweds and invasive since October. I saved Mia as ICE in my phone and texted her my new code. She texted hers back. Banking, Mia prompted. I opened a new checking account online in my name only, transferred my last 2 freelance payments, moved automatic deposits. I pulled my credit report, flagged a freeze at all 3 bureaus from my phone. It was weird comfort, watching boxes tick green, requested, confirmed, locked. It's late, Mia said gently when my eyes started to sting. Sleep here. We'll attack housing after you're vertical again. I laid awake on her couch anyway, the city humming under the window, one hand on my stomach like I was patting a small shoulder. When sleep finally came, it arrived in hard squares. Morning smelled like strong coffee and the confidence of people who know how to make calls. Harper's office was bright wood and clean lines, a bowl of clementinas on the credenza, a soft gray rug that made me want to take my shoes off. She shook my hand like she was happy to be on my side. First, she said, eyes kind, voice efficient, I'm sorry. Second, we draw a map. I gave her the fast version of everything, anniversary dinner, Alina, the urology email, the lab report. She didn't interrupt, but she underlined in her notes at public humiliation and again at coercive signing. Good, she said when I finished. You didn't sign anything last night? I shook my head. No. He tried. We'll keep it that way. She laid out the plan in squares that matched the ones my sleep finally came in, temporary orders for exclusive use of the apartment and a no harassment clause, formal separation filing to control the clock, pregnancy protection provisions, written-only communication through the MyCase portal, financial disclosures demanded, with penalties for omissions. We'll preserve evidence, she added. Get the club incident report, your friend's contemporaneous notes, the lab result, and any messages that establish timeline. And, Lena, she looked up, making sure I heard it, you're not obligated to be reasonable on their schedule. Paternity? I asked, throat tight. Later, she said. When the baby's here, if you want it, we do a DNA test and a parenting plan. For now, you protect your peace and your prenatal care. We can petition for exclusive occupancy of the apartment today. If he resists, a judge will have thoughts. Her confidence landed like a weighted blanket. We signed retainer papers. She sent the first round of letters before I'd finished my Clementine. Housing next. The apartment lease had both our names, but Harper's motion for temporary exclusive use would set the tone. Today, she said, you don't change locks until we have the order. What you can do is remove his access to your personal spaces, secure your documents, and ask management to note, politely, that legal proceedings are underway. She handed me a script to say to the building office. We avoid the soap opera version. At the building, the manager, Marta, listened with her eyebrows drawn. We'll flag the file, she said. Deliveries to you only. If Mr. Novak, that last name felt like a lost coat, requests copies of keys, we'll call you first. Back upstairs, Mia helped me gather everything that looked like life. Passports, social security card, tax returns, my grandmother's locket, the thumb drive with my client files, the ultrasound appointment card I hadn't written on yet because writing made it real. We put it all in a tote labeled towels because no one ever steals towels. Medical. I called Dr. Patel's office from the edge of my bed, feet on the floor like a grounding exercise. We have your results, the nurse said, warm again. Come in next week for an early scan. Any stressors we should know about? I laughed, an unpretty sound, and then told her the version that fit in a minute. She lowered her voice. We see you, she said. We'll put a note on your chart, support person always allowed, no unexpected visitors. Work. I'm freelance, but the agency that sends me half my gigs counts as work for HR purposes. I emailed the coordinator, temporary reduced availability this week for legal and medical reasons. They replied with a calendar of flexible deadlines and an offer to courier a microphone to my apartment so I could record from home. It made me stupidly grateful. The club. Mia pressed send on a carefully worded request. Pursuant to last night's incident in private dining B, please provide a copy of the manager's incident log and any internal memo documenting the interruption of service due to the presentation of legal documents. 15 minutes later, the manager replied that she'd prepared a note for counsel and would release it upon attorney request. Harper CC'd herself and asked for it formally before my tea cooled. At 11:03, Mark texted, please talk to me. At 11:06, I'll move into Dad's for a few days. I'm sorry about last night. I'm sorry about everything. At 11:10, can we meet? No lawyers. Just us. I stared at the bubbles until they stopped. Harper had told me, written only, through counsel. I typed, deleted, typed again, then sent one line from the template she'd given me. Please direct all communication to my attorney, Harper Kwan. I am requesting written communication only. Then I turned off read receipts. I felt a tremor in my hands and waited for it to pass. Victor emailed at noon because of course he did, subject line, family. It was 3 paragraphs of corporate apology, emotions ran high, unfortunate optics, let's regroup privately, and the line that made my teeth meet, we can still present a unified front. Harper replied on my behalf, 2 sentences that might as well have been a steel door, all future communication in writing to counsel. Any further contact outside counsel will be considered harassment. At 12:40, Alina texted from an unknown number, I didn't know about March. I returned the pearls. Then, I'm sorry, Lena. I typed thank you and didn't send it. Not because I needed her to hurt, but because my energy had a budget now and I wanted to spend it on this small human who would need me more than apologies did. Mia made turkey sandwiches and forced half into me. We sat at my table and opened a new spiral notebook, baby. On the first page, I wrote a list that wasn't a battle plan, prenatal vitamins, breakfast that isn't coffee, water bottle on my desk, a playlist that doesn't remind me of weddings, a therapist referral Harper's paralegal sent with 3 asterisks, and takes your insurance. The doorbell buzzed. Marta from downstairs stood there with an envelope and a brass tag. Temporary order, she said, eyebrows lifting. That was fast. Harper had done what she said. Exclusive use for 30 days pending hearing, a judge's signature that looked like a sale. I slid the tag onto my key ring, breath returning to its correct size. We walked through the apartment like it was new construction. Mia moved Mark's shoes to a closet, flipped their toes toward the wall. I took his glass from the sink and washed it, not because I'm saintly but because I wanted my kitchen back. I folded the blanket he always left on one cushion and put it on a shelf. I deleted his face from the digital frame he'd given me last Christmas, set it to loop photos of Lake Michigan and a bowl of clementines and my mom's hands kneading dough. When I finally sat on my own couch, the quiet was different. Not sterile hotel quiet. The kind after a fire drill when you realize the building is still standing and you know where the exits are now. Harper texted, filed. Hearing date in 2 weeks. Rest today. Dr. Patel's office pinged, appointment confirmed. Bring someone you trust. Mia rested her head on my shoulder, a weight that said here. I opened the baby notebook to a fresh page and wrote, slowly, with the fountain pen Victor had gifted for my erasure but which now signed my beginning, name ideas, not because I had to pick one, but because planning something soft felt like rebellion. The courthouse hallway smelled like toner and old coffee, bureaucracy's cologne. Frost clung to the windows despite the heat kicking from a vent that rattled like a tired chest. Mia sat beside me on a wooden bench, a paper cup warming her hands, the other hand steady on my knee like a metronome I could set my breath to. Harper arrived exactly on time, her hair in a low knot, her file a neat rectangle of my recent life. We're on the 10/20 calendar, she said. Judgling efficient, compassionate, no patience for theatrics. Perfect for today. Do I have to say anything? I asked. Only if you want to, she said. I'll carry the load. You just tell the truth when asked. Mark came down the hall at 10:12, flanked by Victor and a firm lawyer who wore a tie the color of compliance. Mark looked smaller without the club lighting, the confidence that room had handed him. He glanced at my stomach before catching himself, shame and something like wondering edging his face. Victor's eyes did a sweep of our bench, our counsel, our composure, and then landed on Harper with the mild surprise of a man realizing the other side brought a sharper knife. We filed into 3B. Judge Ling's bench was tidy, a single bonsai on the far corner. She called the case, confirmed names. Her gaze moved like a scanner, click, 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 taking us in. Harper stood first. Your Honor, we're asking to continue temporary exclusive possession for MS. Novak, maintain written-only contact through counsel, and enter a no-harassment order. Additionally, we request a protective clause regarding medical appointments and privacy due to Ms. Novak's pregnancy. She slid exhibits to the clerk, the lab result, the building manager's note, the club incident log, Mia signed, timestamp statement. The opposing party attempted to present dissolution papers in a public dining room to coerce signature. We'd like the court to note that as context for ongoing boundaries. Victor's lawyer objected to the word coerce like it was a personal insult. Judge Ling didn't blink. Was there or was there not an event where legal papers were presented in a private club with witnesses? She asked, voice flat as a ruler. Victor's lawyer cleared his throat. There was an ill-advised family discussion that tangentially involved paperwork. Terrific euphemism, Judge Ling said dryly. Mr. Novak? She looked at Mark, not his father. Do you understand why your wife might reasonably request distance? Mark's answer was quiet. Yes, Your Honor. Do you oppose the temporary orders? He hesitated. In that one beat I saw him choose between the script Victor wrote and the truth that had finally found him. No, Your Honor. I agree to them. I'll communicate through counsel. I won't contact Lena directly. Victor shifted like a man sitting on springs. Judge Ling didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the person whose life this actually was. Ms. Novak, anything you want to say? I stood because my body wanted me to, because my voice felt like a muscle I trusted now. Just that I'm not trying to punish anyone, I said. I'm trying to protect myself and my baby. Privacy, quiet, clear lines. That's it. Judge Ling nodded. Those are reasonable goals. She signed the order with a pen that scratched like certainty. Exclusive possession extended to 90 days pending further hearing. No in-person contact absent counsel and consent. Medical privacy affirmed. If anyone violates this, I'll enjoy the contempt hearing more than you will. Harper exhaled softly. Mia's fingers squeezed mine once. The clerk stamped copies, thunk, thunk, and the sound felt like locks sliding home. In the hallway, Victor tried to square his shoulders into a shape that could still command me. Harper stepped in without raising her voice. All communication through me, she said. Don't make me repeat it. Mark's lawyer murmured to him about next steps. Alina wasn't there. The pearls never came back to her ears. Lena, Mark said, one foot turning toward me like a reflex. Can I say something? Harper glanced at me. This choice was mine. I nodded once. He took a breath that trembled at the end. I'm sorry, he said, and it wasn't the performative kind. For the emails, for the party, for letting my father tell me who I was. For making you hold my shame. He looked at Mia. Thank you for making sure she didn't. You can keep your thanks, Mia said, not unkind. Just follow the order. Victor opened his mouth, closed it. For a second, without the club stage or the firm's glass, he looked like a man on the edge of a map he printed himself. This isn't how our family does things, he muttered, a final, small protest tossed into a current. It is now, I said. Then Mia and I walked to the elevator, the doors sliding shut like a period. The weeks after organized themselves into a life. Not a movie montage, a grid of ordinary squares. I went to work. I went to therapy. I ate scrambled eggs that stuck to the pan and made me swear softly before laughing anyway. My mother arrived with a suitcase full of sweaters and an insistence that my freezer remain stocked with soup. We took evening walks around the block, her arm tucked in mine, winter working into spring in tiny increments I could count. At the first ultrasound, the room went dark and small, a tiny constellation on the screen blinking like a signal sent from inside my ribs. Dr. Patel turned the monitor toward me. Mia sat in the corner chair, a grin she couldn't restrain breaking across her face. There, Dr. Patel said softly, tracing with the probe. Do you see? A flicker, steady and miraculous. A heartbeat. Not metaphoric. Real. I didn't cry at first. I just breathed differently, slower and deeper, like my body wanted to make space around that sound. Then the tears came, quiet, grateful, mine. Mia pressed a tissue into my hand without looking away from the screen. After, in the lobby, a couple waited with matching hospital bracelets. The woman leaned into the man's shoulder, eyes closed. I didn't envy their constellation. I felt glad for it like you feel glad for strangers on the same highway making it home. On the way out, we passed a pharmacy. Mia tugged me in and bought prenatal vitamins and a bottle of polish in a color called clementine. For luck, she said, waving the tiny orange like a flag. At home, my apartment had settled into itself. The blanket stayed on the shelf. The digital frame glowed with Lake Michigan and my mom's hands and the bowl of clementines. I wrote to the baby in the spiral notebook, nothing profound, just ordinary promises. I'll try my best. I'll choose kindness over spectacle. I'll read you the dog-eared book my mother read me. I'll teach you to leave places better than you found them, even if the place is somebody's dinner table. When the hearing for longer-term orders came, it was brief. Mark agreed to everything on paper, his lawyer nodding like a metronome. There would be time, later, to discuss custody and support and DNA, if I wanted to. For now, my life had borders I'd drawn with a fountain pen that once arrived to sign my disappearance. The last time I saw Victor, he was walking out of the courthouse behind Mark, a step shorter than when he'd walked in. He glanced at me and then at the floor. There was no speech, no reach. Just an old man learning a new fact. Legacy isn't something you force into a shape, it's how people remember the room when you leave it. Spring finally arrived like it always does. With mud, with sunlight sneaking under the blinds too early. With the first day I left the coat on the hook and didn't regret it. I opened the windows. The city sounded like a radio I liked again. Mia came over with takeout and flowers that smelled like someone saying stay. We ate on the couch with our feet tucked under us. The ultrasound photo stuck to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a tiny lemon. My mother called to ask if I needed more soup. I told her no and yes in the same sentence. We laughed. Before bed, I stood at the window and looked at our building's reflection, boxes of light stacked in the glass, each a small, ordinary story. Mine, for now, was quiet. Not empty. Full the way low tide is full, water pulled back so you can see the ground you're standing on. In the dark, I touched the pale circle on my finger where the ring had been, then the small swell under my palm where a different kind of circle was forming.